two things that we are going to discuss: hackathons and startup. What is the reason of kind of there is an interaction between hackathon and startup? So what do you think? What would be the reason behind the combination of hackathons and startups? So in hackathons, what you have to do is, yes, you know what you have to do, right? So you have to come up with some product. That can be either a product, that means the tangible product, or that can be a software, that can be a mobile application, web application, some kind of service. Anything can be there for a hackathon, right? I mean, hackathon product. So when it comes to startups, so they are to build a startup actually. So you have to have a clear idea what you are going to do, and you have to have a clear aim. So we'll discuss what are the things that we have to understand for a startup later on. But now I'm going to discuss about the relationship between the hackathon and a startup to build up our topic, right? So in a hackathon, as I mentioned, yes, you have to develop something. But when it comes to startup, so startup can be a right, let's say like this. So hackathon should be the starting point of a startup, right? So hackathon startup, it is not very like there is no any big history behind startups, right? In earlier days when we were students, we have in Sri Lanka we have a limited number of startups, right? So the reason is they didn't mention that is a startup. So initially, maybe in a household environment, or maybe in a friendly environment, maybe three friends gathered together and they come up with some idea, and we are going to develop this kind of application, and we are going to sell these things to the client. And based on that, they formulated a company, small company that can be a there is no any proper office location, but they start some kind of company, right? So nowadays we have several startups. Even for your internship program in your third year, you are going for internship, maybe a startup company. So nowadays there are several startups, right? So the hackathon idea of hackathon came into play 5-6 years back, right? This is not for the hackathon also there is no any big history, right? When we were student, I remember in my first year also, we didn't have something called hackathons, right? We have small software development companies, the competitions, sorry, not companies, competition, right? So we had those kind of things, but the hackathon, the word is not so popular in Sri Lankan context, but in other countries, yes, the hackathon concept was there, right? So the main, the kind of venue for the hackathon, so kind of hackathon is the Google Summer of Code, right? So those days we had that competition, Google Summer of Code. Even nowadays you can apply for that, and Microsoft Imagine Cup. Those type of competitions were there, but these hackathons, those days we didn't had those things, right? Okay, now we'll see what is a hackathon and what is a startup, and the relationship, the proper relationship. Okay, so if you see a laptop like this nowadays, and what if you see a laptop like this, right? So not today, actually, not these days with the virtual environment, sorry for that, but not in a virtual, that means the physical environment. Most of the hackathon, even our hackX also, not last year, also previous years. So they provided some laptop stickers, right, with the logo of the hackX and all the things, right? So so if we see a laptop like this, then we can definitely understand he's participating to hackathons, right? Usually those days when we are participating for the hackathons and all the competition, we are counting the number of stickers which are pasted in their laptops, right? Based on that, we understand what type of person is that, right? But not nowadays, because with the virtual environment, so it is not possible to paste stickers and show those things to the others, because all the things are now virtual hackathons and everything, right? So these are not just laptop stickers. Okay, so it is related to the technologies and the hackathons, the naming, the logos, and everything. Right. So what you have to do in a hackathon, that is the main thing that you have to do, that you have to understand. Right. Think, code, build, explain, brand, and market. Some people say hackathon is just about coding and building a product. That is totally wrong. Right? That is totally wrong. You cannot say we can we can come up with a solution for a hackathon after just building some product. That is not possible. You have to think properly. You have to understand, right? You have to understand what is the business needs or the requirement of the client. And based on that, you can plan and code, right? And then you can build whatever the application. That can be application or product, maybe IoT related stuff, embedded system, whatever, right? So you can build, yes, that's fine. So that is the part of the backend process. After that, you have to explain what will happen, right? Because others will don't know, right? Others don't know what is this product is about, right? So you have to explain, and you have to brand it properly. Right? You have to have a proper branding and marketing strategies. You may can have a brand name, maybe a product name, a proper product name, and then the important thing is marketing part, right? So when you are formulating your teams for a hackathon, not maybe just for the hackX and the idea sprint, maybe for the future hackathon, because now you are in your first year or second year, right? So you have 3 or 4, or let's say more years to come, right? So in that case, you can participate to several hackathons, because in 1 year, if you go to the hackathons.lk site or any other place that that hackathons are advertising, you can see several hackathons are there, right? So you can apply. But remember, when you are formulating your groups, because this is not, remember, this is not an individual game, right? So this is a group game, group project. So not a project, let's say it's a game, right? It is a group game. So everybody should cooperate. Otherwise, this is not going to be well, right? The thing is, you have a limited number of time. Some hackathons, they are allowing you to use the previously built whatever the product or whatever the part of code that is acceptable. But in some hackathons, they are allowing you to develop something within the given period of time. Let's say 12 hours or 24 hours. Those are the most popular thing, 12-hour or 24-hour hackathon, right? So in that particular period of time, you have to think, you have to code, you have to build, explain, brand, and market, right? All the things should be there. The reason is the importance of this life cycle. I would say this is the hackathon life cycle, right? So important of this is, let's say you have built a very small product, primitive product. Let's say a small mobile application, right? But the idea behind that is very critical. Let's say it is something related to the COVID situation, right? So you are going to build some application to deal with the COVID situation, right? Maybe a dashboard or kind of stuff, whatever. Let's say you are going to build that one. Okay. So the technologies that you are going to use maybe not that much of comprehensive, very primitive technologies. Yes. And then you are going to build the product correctly after understanding the proper needs. And then when you are presenting your product to the panel of judges and to the audience, if you didn't market your product, if you didn't brand and market your product correctly, then you are going to lose all the marks. Remember that. Even though you did a comprehensive job, I mean, you are going to develop your application completely, right? Let's say we have 100. Let's say we have 100 requirements, right? So you are going to address all the requirements, and you are going to build the mobile application accordingly. After addressing all the 100 requirements, and you have a proper product. But when you are going to pitch, right? When you are going to pitch your product, remember, your pitching guy or the marketing expert in your team should do a very good job. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? Now let's think about the other way around, right? We are going to build a small, very small, very primitive application. We have, let's say, 5 requirements. We have identified 5 requirements, very small product, right? And then we build that product. Let's say we are going to build that one. Okay, now it is completed, and at the end, when you are going to pitch the product, your marketing guy is a superb person, right? So I have several experience I will share with you in coming slides, right? So let's say he's a brilliant guy, right? The marketing guy. So he's going to market your product. He's going to pitch your product in like uh, uh, I would say 100%, not more than 100% expectation, right? So the audience and the panel of judges, they are going to impress with the pitch, not with the product, because it's a very primitive one. But remember that product, which has a number of 5 requirements, and if you compete that product with the application that has 100 odd requirements, if the marketing guy, the pitching guy, did a very good job with the application which has 5 requirements, that application is going to win the hackathon, right? Remember that. So all the things in the life cycle is very important, right? Maybe you are good in IT, maybe you are good in programming, maybe you are good in marketing. So that doesn't matter. When you are formulating your teams, right? It is very important to have a proper balance. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Remember, this is not a project. This is not a typical student project. This is a hackathon. This is a game. You have to win, right? Okay. So remember, when you are formulating, you should have a good person who has a very good knowledge about the technologies, who has a very good knowledge about the idea and the requirement gathering, right? And remember, you have to have a good marketing guy also. At least, usually for a hackathon, minimum number of people would be 3, right? Ideal case, right? So that is not going to be 2 people group, because it's not going to work for a hackathon. The minimum number usually for for hackathons, the minimum number of people in a group should be 3, right? So one should have a proper knowledge about the technologies and the coding styles. One should have a proper knowledge about the requirement gathering and all the stuff. Maybe that person or the IT guy should have proper knowledge about user experience, user interfaces, how to design the interfaces properly. If it is going to be a IoT related product or something, then what type of interfaces that you have to provide, how to make it user friendly. Those things as those 2 people, the IT expert and the I would say the business analyst person, should tackle, right? So the marketing guy, he has a different role, right? He or she will not involve with your coding, right? Maybe he or she will involve, but that we cannot guarantee, because his or her role should be branding and marketing your product. Okay, so remember that when you're formulating your groups. Okay, now I will go to the current situation about hackathons, right? In a virtual environment, right? From last year onward, all the hackathons are virtual, right? So when it comes to virtual environment, so you have to work with the cloud-based technologies. So what are cloud-based technologies? I am not going to explain, because this is not a lecture, as I mentioned, right? So you can search and understand what type of cloud-based technologies that you can use. Maybe you can host your product to somewhere else and use it accordingly. Yeah. So those are the cloud-based technologies, right? So just understand how to use those things. And if it is a physical environment, then you have the team with you, right? As in the second picture, right? So wait, I will just the laser pointer. Okay. So according to this picture, right, this one, so you have a team in here, right? This is a physical environment. But in a virtual environment, you have a team they are using Zoom or Teams or whatever the communication platform, not like this, right? So that is, fortunately or unfortunately, we have to tackle that also, right? So how to involve with them, how to manage your team, the leader of the team, what are the things that he or she should concern, right? When he is going to handle the team, right? And the other important thing is the version control, right? So what is version control? So there can be several developers in your team. Maybe let's say, sorry to interrupt, maybe Heshan or someone can answer. How many members you are allowing to have in the idea sprint for a team? Anyone from the coordinators?
Yeah, yes, sir. We are allowing 3 to 5 members, sir.
3 to 5. Okay. So the minimum is 3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
thanks. Okay. Then, so that is the usual case for the other hackathons as well. So let's say we have 4 members in your team, right? So 2 people, maybe developer. They are maybe the developers. The third one may be the UI UX expert. Fourth one would be the marketing guy, right? So the developers are working simultaneously while they are updating their product, the coding, all the things they are working on their end, because this is virtual environment, not physical. So if it is physical environment, then one or two can gather together and then develop the product, right? So that is not going to happen in this case. So one developer will edit something, and then he or she, right, should commit those things to the server, the repository, the version. So the version which used by the developer 1 is not the version which is using by the developer 2, right? Because he has done some edits, but in the same time developer 2 is doing some editing, right? So there can be code conflict, right? So if you use version controlling, right, so just study those things if you're not familiar with it. You will end up getting some buggy application, right? It is not going to work. Your application is not going to work. So at the initial stage, yes, there are free environment that you can use. The famous one, GitHub, right? So you can use the GitHub, no issue, right? Everyone can use. You can have a public repository, and then everybody can do their contribution to that particular repository, right? So remember, in the virtual environment, it is a must to have a version controlling mechanism, right? Even if it is going to be physical environment, because in coming years, yes, we can have the physical environment, physical hackathon, hopefully, right? In that case, it is kind of useful if you use the version controlling, because two people can work not together. Maybe they are sitting in the same place, but they are using their own laptops and they are coding, right? In that case also, if you have a proper version controlling mechanism, then it would be very useful. And the other important thing is time management, right? Yes, I know the coordinators and everyone in the organizing team will inform you the time left, remaining time for your activity. But remember that the others are not there in your team members. They are not with you. They are with you virtually, but individually you have to pay attention for the time, right? So remember these things: cloud-based environment and team collaboration, team management, the version controlling, and the time management, right? So these things are very important. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you is some of my experience. I am going to share some experience, because these things will be kind of very valuable to you, right? So in my 4th year, so that is the year that we started going to hackathon, because as I mentioned earlier, in first year, second year, third year we had several, right? But in first year, second year, we didn't had those experience to participate in hackathons, because we didn't have the hackathons. Even the hackX was started in my 4th year, right? So that is the first hackathon that we went, right? The hackX, first hackathon, right? And then we won the first runner-up place in my team, right? So my team, there were 4 people. Initially there were 4 people. So this is me, and this is Anojan, and this is Timita, the small guy. He's your IMA in the Industrial Management Alumni Association current president, right? And this is Malik, right? The role that we played in our team, yeah, I was the team lead, and Timita is UI expert, right? He's good in UI, user interface designing and everything. Anojan and myself, we are good at coding, right? So we too handle Anojan and myself handle the coding part of the application. Timita handle the user interface designing part, and this guy, I would say he's the front end of our application, right? He is the one who market our application. Without his support, we wouldn't be able to secure the place, right? Because even though we develop product, we develop a mobile application. So this is a mobile application that we build. So I will show you a small demo of that application also to get some idea, right? So though we did a kind of a comprehensive one, without his support, without the marketing specialist support, it is going to be a nightmare to win the hackathon, right? So actually in the hackathons, I remember that was a 12-hour hackathon, right? So the hackathon started around 8 p.m. and then it ended on the next day at 8 a.m. If I'm not mistaken. I'm not very much remember about the time and all the things. Anyway, it's a 12-hour hackathon, right? So he slept, right? When we are doing the coding, he slept. No issue because he didn't have something to do with the coding stuff, right? So he has a freedom to do. Even he watched the friends. Not in this hackathon, this iHack hackathon, the second one that we participate. I remember I was sitting with him. I was sitting next to him. So he was watching the Friends TV series, and I was doing the code, right? Because he didn't had some kind of he didn't had the good knowledge about the coding and everything, right? So, but at the end, right? At the end, he's the one who saved us, right? Okay. So that's why I said initially, this one, the marketing guy should be the key person in your team, right? So there we won the first runner-up place, and then we went to the another hackathon, which is the iHack 2.0, organized by UCSC, right? And there we won the first place, right? Unfortunately, that team consists of only 3 members because according to their rule, we can have only 3 people in that group for that hackathon, right? So we had to keep Timital out from the team for the time being, but for this hackathon and this hackathon also, we use the same application, same product, right? So I will say, I will explain how you can use the same product in several hackathons, right? So yeah, so we had to keep him out from the time being, for the time being, and then we went for the hackathon and we won the first place, right? So that is the second one. And the third one, the final one of our hackathon journey with the application that we built. So that application is we named it as Catch Me, not catchme.lk, which is that is a shopping application, right? E-commerce application, so not that one. Separate application, Catch Me, a bus tracking application actually. So so we went with some improvement, and iHack was 24 hours hackathon, and we had to do several things. We have to do several improvements to this one because when we are listening to the initial pitch, we understood that other teams are kind of competitive teams, right? So we had to do a good job. Yes, and we won. The next one. So we went to the Disrupt 2.0 Future X competition organized by Slascom and Zebra Technologies. So that is kind of all island, not university organized hackathon, right? So inter-university technopreneur challenge, uh, right? So that is the kind of on those days. That is a kind of very famous competition that university students can participate, right? And then they are unfortunately we couldn't win that competition, but we ended up getting into finals, and then we won the not won actually. So our place was fourth place, right? So unfortunately, by 2 or 3 marks, if I'm not mistaken, we won the fourth place, right? So if we can score more, then yes, that also we can win, right? Okay, so for that team, we had the full team, right? For that, Timita, Anojan, myself, and Alit, everybody was there for this hackathon. And we should for that hackathon, we should, I can't remember. So we should have a mentor, right, for this one, because it is kind of a properly organized one. So we should have a mentor. So we seek the help from Professor Janaka Vijayanayaka of our department as the mentor, and he was the mentor in this application. Sorry, not the competition in our team, right? Yeah, that's how the journey of this application with our hackathon experience, right? So I will show you a small demo of the application that we built, so you can get some idea. So nowadays, uh, this is not the level that we expect. Actually, not me. The organizers expect very kind of a comprehensive product, not like this. Right? I would say when comparing with this one with the product that you are building, maybe for your third year project, not for the project, maybe that you have a competition for INCO, right? INCO competition. For that also, you have to have a kind of innovative product, right? So for that also, some people are developing a comprehensive application, right? So I would say this is a primitive application, right? Even though I built this one, right? This is a primitive application, and but if for that time, this kind of good application. Okay, so I will play this one. Okay, just watch. There's no any sound. Just watch the screen. What will happen? The functionality, all the things are there in the application. It's very primitive one. You can just track buses. You can get the details, the capacity, and everything, and the count of the number of people who are in the bus, and you can rate as the passenger. And then as the bus owner, you can check the earnings and everything related to the bus, right? You can get the heat maps, subscription, everything can be there, right? So it's kind of comprehensive, right? But not comparing with your applications, right? When comparing with the application on those days, is kind of comprehensive, right? So that would be the good phrase that I can use, right? Okay, so yeah. Now, small video is a hackathon which was happened in 2018, International Hackathon. So just listen to this, and you can get some idea about the things that they are going to explain. Very small video. So hope you can hear
The
this.
reward ceremony is basically the start, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly. Because this is hackathon. This is like a really like intense experience for 24 hours. You have to create a 4 minutes presentation and a 4 minutes demo. But the actual work is starting after this. And then what I think is the most important in the implementation, that the teams who are meeting here have to have something like somewhere a communication channel, or maybe a platform, or somewhere where they can meet in the future and work on their project there. So that's really a key factor for taking further these early stage concepts into real life MVPs and then products.
And in order for an enterprise to drive really disruptive innovation through a hackathon, I think it's very important to have all the resources in hand after the award ceremony for the teams to continue with achieving milestones, meeting expectations, who are the experts who could be involved throughout the implementation process, get regular feedback and know when they are expected, for example, their pilot to start or the launch of the real product on the market, like a test launch, and who are the people they can consult with, and what is the regular project management cycle within the company that they can rely on. And having a digital platform, the teams can involve all the stakeholders at a very early stage, sharing ideas about not just how the idea should look like, but how the implementation should look like, what is the business impact, and I agree that it helps a lot to do it digitally.
And I think that what we are talking about, that the hackathon is not over here actually. So it has a long-term impact on the company's culture, in the company's everyday life, because I think it influences somehow the people's mindset. So how they approach problems, how they approach their teammates, how they approach new challenges what they are facing in the workplace. So I think that also having a like long-term impact for the hackathon. Or what do you think? I am not sure like what is the point on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think not just disruptive innovation, but the hackathon is a really cool model to start influencing a culture of continuous innovation, either inside or outside of the company as well, showing that it is possible to come up with improvement suggestions or even very surprising ideas, and the company will support it with resources to implement it in real life. This will be an encouragement for anyone in the company to start small challenges, maybe on process improvement, product improvement, or service development. And I agree, it's a mindset. It's a new wave within the company to happen.
Let's see the results then. I would suggest go to the awarding ceremony.
Okay. Now we have to understand the relationship between hackathon and a startup, right? So we as per the previous slides that I showed you, we went for several hackathons, right? In my team, we went for several hackathons, right? So we could have established a startup, right? We could have established one. What is the reason that we didn't do that? We had the funding, because when we are participating for the FutureX competition, there were the final competition, which is organized by Sluscom. There were several investors, right? So they would like to invest on our product, and so I remember there were two stakeholders that they are interested in our application, and then they ask us to formulate a small startup, and they are going to fund for that. They are going to provide all the funding, office places, and everything. And they asked one person asked us to inform what is our opinion on that. After several discussions, unfortunately, we couldn't formulate that startup. Right? The reason was we had several other things in mind. Right? So the main reason is Malit and myself. Right? The Malit, the marketing guy, and myself, the one who sponsored for the iHack competition, the second competition, which is organized by the UCSC, right? So the Direct FN company was the sponsor for that application, for that competition, and then they recruited us, right? As myself as a software engineer and Malit as a business analyst, right? So with a competitive salary also, right? So in that case, if we formulate the startup, we could have lost that opportunity, right? We could have lost that opportunity to work in that reputed company. You know about DirectFN, Mubasha, and Global Market Technologies, right? So they were the one who sponsored for that one. The general manager who participated for the final evaluation, he's really impressed in our application, right? And then he also wanted to formulate a small team when we are working for his company. Also, he wanted us to continue this catch me application and implement this one into the real world, but we didn't, right? We couldn't do that, right? So there is a risk behind formulating a startup. Actually, initially, yes, you will have the fun, right? So maybe somebody will sponsor, or with the collaborative effort from the others, maybe you can have a small number of shares, and then you can formulate a small startup with your own money, right? That's fine, but there is a risk, right? So what happen if you didn't perform well, right? What happen if you didn't perform well in the startup? What happen if you cannot achieve the goals that you set when you are formulating the hackathon? Sorry, when you are formulating the startup, right? So that is the main risk that we have, right? Otherwise, your product which you are going to build for the hackathon can be converted into a good startup. Right? So we have several experience. The Anojan, the one who worked with me with the development, he started his own company in Jaffna. Right? So he started his own company. Now he's the owner of that company, and now it's a kind of a big company there. Right? So he would like to take the risk, and he started not with our application actually. So he started up. He make a like he wanted to have his own company from very first days. Yes, and he achieved that goal, right? So Timita also got one of job opportunity. He the UCC the direct FN company wanted to hire him also, right, for the UI UX part, but he wanted to work for another company, so that's why he didn't join with us, right? Um, sorry. So the main reason is the combination of your team, right? So if your team members doesn't like to work in your team for the startup, then it is going to be a big problem, right? So the key factors for the success of a startup, you can see in this diagram, in this figure: timing, team, idea, business model, and funding, right? You can see small amount of percentage for funding, right? Yes, funding we can manage somehow, right? That's okay. But what about the timing, right? So if it is a startup, then you have to achieve several goals within a limited number of time. Otherwise, you will not be able to, let's say, you are going to hire a couple of people, right? So you will not be able to pay at the end, right? So that is going to be a problem, even though you have the funding. So if you cannot if you cannot achieve the goals properly, then you will not be able to utilize those funds, right? So timing is very important for a startup. And as I mentioned, the team composition, the architecture of the team, and the what would be the team composition and how many members are there. So that is also really important. And the idea is also important. So if you don't have a proper idea, then you will not be able to have a proper startup, right? And you have to have proper business model. Obviously, you have to have the funds. Now we'll see the reason for startup failures, right? So you can see there are several startups, but like after 1 or 2 years, they are not going to continue their work or continue with their project. The reason is the reason for failures are like this, right? No market need. So if your product is not needed for the market, then why do you have to work, or why do you have to continue your work, right? So that's why idea is really important, right? You have to have a proper idea about the market need. So this is very important for the hackathon as well, right? So if you don't have a proper market need, if you don't have a proper idea or requirement, then there is no point of developing a product, right? And the next one is running out of cash. Right? So if you have the funding initially, but since you have to pay and you have to, so startup is kind of, so let's say you are going to compare your let's say like this. So Anojan and myself, right? So Anojan went to starting a company, and I went to work for a different company. What would be the initial salary scales that we receive? Right? So if you work for a company, then there is no any risk, right? So I didn't have the risk of losing money because I have a salary at the end of the month. I had the salary, but Anojan didn't have. He didn't have that kind of salary, right? So all the thing he had to earn by himself, right? So if you run out of cash in the middle of doing something in a startup, then that is going to be a big problem, right? And if you don't have the right team, so that is unfortunately you will have to stop your work, right? So if the other person is not acknowledging what you are going to propose in your startup, then that is not going to work. There are conflicts, right? Conflicts ended up getting fired maybe, or your startup is going to be ended very soon, right? And the other one is get out competed. So that is again very important for a hackathon, right? I said for the same application that we built, we went for 3 hackathons, right? In the third one, we realized a team from other university, right? Team from other university copied our idea, and then they came up with a revised version of our application, right? So they are going to compete with our product. So if you propose your idea to in a hackathon, so you will not be able to formulate that product for future hackathons, maybe because your idea is going to be. So let's say you have a good idea. You don't have any application at the moment for that kind of idea, right? So but when you go to a hackathon, your idea will be open to the others. So they are going to come up with a new version or new solution for the same idea. So you are going to have competitors. So if you cannot compete, then that is not going to be worthful, right? So that is not going to work in a startup. So you have to compete, right? So WSO2, IFS, right? So on 24/7, Cisco Labs, popular companies. So they are building product. So why do I have to purchase WSO2 API for doing something without using Amazon Web Services? There should be a competitive advantage, right? So you have to compete with the others. Competition is a normal thing, right? So you have to do something new. You have to rework. You have to propose something new. And the next thing is cost issues. So if you didn't do the costing and the marketing initially, even in a startup, then that is not going to work at the end, right? Other reasons I'm not going to explain because poor product, business model, poor marketing, customers ignorance, time management, for loss of focus, right? Investors, location. So many reasons are there, but you can understand what are the other reasons, right? So the important reason, the top reason you have to remember, you have to keep it in mind when you are developing a product for a hackathon. If you have a focus to make your application or make your team as a startup, right? Don't worry about the funding at the beginning, right? So you will get some investors, right? So you have several investors even for the hackathons. Some of the maybe even in the judge panel, they are like your product and they are going to sponsor your application, right? So you can find the cash, you can find the initial funding. That's okay if you have a good product, right? So in the beginning, remember to have a good product. At the end, we can do whatever we want, right? Okay.
It's so
Now listen to
exciting
a small
watching
song,
my life
right?
unfurl at a time when geeks like me can change the world. There's a hackathon tonight, and if it works out alright, I can improve society. Oh yeah, improve society. But a VC will be there with money in his wallet. If I pitch him like a boss, I could get funding for my project. 7-figure sum and I'll be crushing everyone at the hackathon tonight. At the hackathon tonight. There are prizes up for grabs if I can get paid. My phone is 6 months old, you know I need to upgrade. I can surely waste up gadgets if I sweet talk with the judges at the hackathon tonight. At the hackathon tonight. Now the rebel's on the table and I'm ready to go. I've got Sublime 5 open on my MacBook Pro. I'll type at 20 words a minute. I'm really gonna kill it at the hackathon tonight. At the hackathon tonight. The buzz is gone, we're underway, my chance to shine has come. The cable mess around me shows I'm hacker number one. The framework that I'm using's not in alpha yet. I'm coding on the bleeding edge, but starting to regret. Just to set up the environment has taken so much time. The clock is ticking down, I haven't written a single line. The Wi-Fi's cutting out, I've got a dying battery. I got conflict after conflict in my Git repository. The deadline is approaching and there's still a bug to mend, but my code is obfuscated. Will this nightmare never end? My time ran out and I had to stop. Instead of showing a demo, I used Photoshop. I tried to change society, but it wasn't to be. At the hackathon tonight, oh yeah, the hackathon tonight. I know next time it'll be alright.
Okay. Don't say next time will be all right. So make it this time will be all right. Right? And then don't use Photoshop and then develop a proper product.